Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on when you're listening to this. Welcome, bienvenue, willkommen, bienvenidos, benvenuti, velkommen, benvindo, tervetuloa, and if you're in Azerbaijan, I'm open to bribes. I mean, kos galmishinis, to the first ESC Tipscom podcast of 2014. Don't worry, it's not April, nor is it May. It's January, and ESCtips.com is bringing you an exclusive Melodifestivalen podcast with two super special star guests. Just like our Eurovision podcast, we'll be analysing the artists and songs. Unlike our Eurovision podcasts, most of us haven't heard the songs, but just like our Eurovision podcast, the United Kingdom has no chance of winning. My name is Andy Redfern. On the website, my name is Scandi Andy. Before I introduce our distinguished guests, may I just ask that you support ESCtips.com by rating this podcast on iTunes. It really does make a difference. Also, if you're listening on YouTube, please share the podcast with your friends. Lastly, if you'd like to hear more podcasts from ESC Tips or read about our betting insights, please follow us on Twitter and Facebook, in addition to inviting your Eurovision friends to like us. So, without further ado, let's introduce our star guests. It's the head honcho, the boss and the owner of ESC Tips. ESC Tips is his pulpit, but he talks a load of Brummy accented common sense. It's Gavin Lambert, the Gavster. Welcome, Gav.
Hello, Andy. It's another year. We're starting on this again. Who are the guests today?
Two blokes. I don't know who. No, actually, we've been joined by, well, I don't think it's an exaggeration to call them Eurovision royalty. Joining us from Helsinki, we have one of the very few people to have commentated on Eurovision for television in two separate languages. From Helsinki, we have Tobias Larsson. Welcome, Tobias.
Oh, thank you. I think the Swiss commentators would possibly be able to beat me on that record if they do all four languages. But yeah, I've been doing it in two languages, Swedish and Finnish, and they are pretty diverse and pretty different. So yeah. I was much more fluent in one than the other, but it was a very interesting experience anyway.
Well, I mean, from my experience, Swedish, very nice language. Finnish, bloody nightmare.
Very nice, but a little bit hard.
Yeah. No, that's absolutely fair enough. And joining us from Stockholm, for over 6 weeks, this is a man who immerses himself in the Melodifestivalen bubble, just so his readers don't have to. He is Aftonbladet's Melodifestivalen and Eurovision correspondent from Stockholm. Welcome, Torbjörn Ek. Welcome.
Thank you so very much. That is, I will for 6 weeks just do nothing but write, blog and do TV about Melodifestivalen. So I will not have any other friends than my blog followers and people who are into Melodifestivalen.
No, absolutely. And I'm sure that you don't enjoy a single second of it, do you?
Oh, no, not at all. I just do this because I'm paid. If you find me smile at any pictures, it's just posting. It's just fake.
I've seen on your blog just the amount of forced smiles there are.
Yes. So
it's quite tragic. Really.
I'm no fan at all. I don't like Melodifestivalen. I don't like this at all. Right? That's okay, right? Yeah.
Well, this is good because we're just here from a purely objective point of view. Okay, so none of us enjoy this at all.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Yes.
Anyway, talking about a lack of enjoyment, we're going on to Malmö, the first heat. Obviously, Melodifestivalen returns to Malmö after Eurovision took place there somewhat successfully, I would say. So the first heat, 1st of February, is in Malmö, and the songs are in running order: To the End by Yohio, Alio by Mahan Moin, by Lina Henning, Casanova by Elisa Lindström, Bedroom by Alvaro Estrella, Songbird by Ellen Benediktsson, Bygdens Son by Sylvester Schlegel, and Survivor by Helena Paparizou. Torbe, I'm going to go to you first. Quite a question. To me, there are two names that stand out here, having not heard the songs myself. They are Yohio, who would have won Melodifestivalen last year if it hadn't been for those pesky foreign judges, and Survivor by Helena Paparizou, who, let's face it, came third in 2001, won Eurovision in 2005, but this is the first time trying to represent the country of her birth. Would you agree with that, or am I talking absolute rubbish?
No, totally. I totally agree with that, because these are the ones that everyone will talk about up until they hear the songs. For us journalists, we will continue writing about this until all of Sweden have heard their songs, because these are the ones that on paper are the ones that should take this. Yohio because he was such a big favorite last year, and Helena Paparizou because of her credentials, of course.
Of course.
But they are also the ones that are set to make the biggest fall. Yohio was such a surprise last year, but who will actually vote for him this year? I think that he will either do a David Lindgren, who last year made it to the final, but in the final ended up last. Or he can even be this year's The Monica, who was a big favorite amongst the kids, who was a big surprise with a colorful, flashy song, all very fun and all that. But the next year came with something that didn't really appeal to the same voters, the young kids. So I'm not sure that Yohio will actually be the man this year.
Okay, Yohio is not the man this year. Gavin, what do you think about this?
That actually echoes my own thoughts, and it also echoes perhaps what people in the betting world are thinking. I've done a bit of reading up on Yohio over the last few weeks, and his song is by Andreas Johnson. He's introduced a more mature influence to his writing, so he's going to be drifting away from those young supporters that pushed him over the line, or nearly pushed him over the line last year. So that more grown-up writing style might just kill his chances. In terms of Helena, I'm worried that her career is in Greece. Are Sweden going to accept her? Is she going to do a Janet Leon and not warm to the female vote? And I think that's the danger. And I'd like to highlight a couple of others that might have a chance, and that's Ellen and Linus. I think both of those have got decent writers, and I think they've both got quite emotive songs that could just push them over the lines and perhaps steal a place off Yohio or Helena.
Okay, that's fair enough. I mean, we'll go to you now, Tobias. Gav was talking about Helena and possibly the Swedish audience not warming to her like the Greek audience previously did in 2001 and 2005. Do you think that might be the case without having heard the songs, obviously?
Well, without having heard the songs, I think she will have a problem because, as you pointed out, the Swedish audience never really warmed to her. If you overlook her two Eurovision entries, she hasn't really had a hit in Sweden since the days when she was in Antique, and that's a long time ago. And people don't feel that connection to her. She was on the Swedish version of Dancing with the Stars, and she did quite badly. People didn't care for her at all, didn't sort of pick up their phones to support her. And with Yohio, I feel that he's been working his way down. He's done a couple of TV appearances in the fall that have been really weird. He's coming across as quite, like, not hard to get, but rather hard to want. And I think that will play against him, that the people who could like him last year, they might have been a bit put off by his appearances lately. Mm-hmm. So I actually think that Elisa Lindström could be a name to look out for, because she was very successful in another TV show that ran for like all the fall in Sweden, that had good ratings and people voted for her all the way to the final. And I think that she could be the surprise here. I'm not convinced that if Yohio or Helena goes on, it's not according to their own merits, then they need really, really good songs for that, I'd say.
I would like to add that
Yes, please.
I've also put a star to Elisa Lindström's name, and the reason for this is because her song is, people that has heard it describes it as this year's only Linda Bengtzing classic Schlager song. And Swedes love the classic Schlager, powerful chorus, and all that. And it's also in Swedish. And we must not forget that Swedes do tend to like the Swedish songs.
And especially the first week in the first heat, when people are longing for Melodifestivalen, when they've really wished for it to start for a long time. I think a Schlager has really, really high potential of hitting home. And in this, then I can say at the same time, the song that I look forward to in this heat is song number 2 by Mahan Moin. And that won't stand a chance. They've been trying so many times to introduce new genres and people who sound different, and they almost always fail because it doesn't appeal to the Swedish televoting audience.
Well, actually, Gavin pointed out when the songs were first released, or the titles of the songs at least, that possibly Malmö, with its immigrant population, might be the perfect place for Mahan Moin to appear. Would you agree with that, Torbjörn?
Well, she might get the arena support, but the arena support is not enough for the Swedish audience to vote for her. So I would instead like to start 2 others. As Gavin already pointed out, Linus Svenning, an amazing voice.
And the Fredrik Kempe song.
And a song by Fredrik Kempe. And also the fact that he looks like a bad boy with all his tattoos and piercings. But his the song is supposed to be a very powerful mid-tempo ballad. So it will his looks will not go together with the type of song. And that might surprise and appeal to a lot of people.
The story,
and also,
isn't it?
Sorry?
The backstory is very good, though, isn't it? The fact that it's about his brother's death. I think a lot of people will buy into that. And I think if we look towards perhaps the UK TV audience, when there's that type of backstory, which they try and inflict on us in the likes of X Factor, it always tends to get a lot of extra votes. And I think perhaps that might work for Linus.
I think so, too. One guy in this heat that I feel a bit sorry for, it's the newcomer Alvaro Estrella with the song Bedroom. I've heard it being described as this year's maybe strongest pop song. But the fact that he is in the first semi-final, he's unknown to the Swedish audience, and it is in English, up against Linus, who's a newcomer as well, but has a more clear image and a song in Swedish. I think he might take the fall for this and be perhaps 5th in this heat. Instead of had he come later on in the competition, if the song is as strong as people keep telling me, he might have done much better if he were in a later semi-final.
Or he might be the big surprise. You never know. I mean, it's often the case also that, I mean, you have the big names that people keep rooting for and the papers keep writing about them, and then suddenly someone comes out of nowhere.
But that's Linus for you.
Yeah, that's probably Linus.
Because Linus is unknown, and the papers won't write that much about him up until everyone has heard the song. Then they want to hear the story.
Doesn't he have? Doesn't he have 3.5 million hits on his YouTube account?
Something like that, yes. Yeah. But that still doesn't count as being a well-known artist.
No.
Well, quite frankly, Torbjörn, whose fault out of all of us is it that the papers don't write about him?
Well, the readers, I would say, not us who write the paper, because we need to report on the most interesting stories, but also about what people can relate to and what they're interested in at the moment. And to start with, that will be Elena Paparizou and Yohio, much more than guys like Alvaro Estrella and Linus Svenning.
And to a certain extent, Elisa, I suppose, since she was so successful in Körslaget recently.
Absolutely, and the Dansbandskampen.
Yeah.
Yes, so she will be written about.
Okay, thank you, gentlemen, for your views there. Now we move on to Linköping and Heat 2. So here we have, in running order, Love Trigger by Year EM, Hallelujah by The Refreshments, Glow by Mando Nilsenius, Efter Solsken by Panetos, I Am Happy by Pink Pistols, Undo by Sanna Nielsen, Set Yourself Free by Little Great Things, and Na Änglarna går hem by Martin Stenmark. Tobias, I think we'll start with you for a change. What's your opinion? What are the standouts here for you?
Well, for me, there is one obvious qualifier here, unless something has gone really, really wrong. Sanna Nielsen, there is just this complete love affair going on between Sanna Nielsen and the Swedish televoters. I think she could stand and sing the phone book backwards and people would vote for her. She has this almost Agneta Fältskog-esque kind of quality that always appeals to the TV voters. And even if she has old-fashioned songs that nobody wouldn't really buy, people still love her and her presence. She's always been in the final every time that she participated. So it would be a shock if Sanna Nielsen does not go straight to the final. And then again, you have Martin Stenmark. I think that he will have a problem. I think people will remember that he went to Kiev and it didn't go well there. And Swedes tend not to think Eurovision this early in Melodifestivalen. They think Melodifestivalen, like, what do we like? But this kind of thing, it's a kind of stigma that I think he will have. I think it will be a problem for him that people will think of Eurovision failure when they see him in Melodifestivalen, and maybe he will not go straight to the final because of that. But he does have good songwriters behind him, so you never know. And then again, you have the refreshments. Sweden, I mean, I come from the countryside in Sweden, actually not far from Linköping, where this heat is taking place. And the kind of music that the refreshments represent, it's so popular and it's so grounded among the everyday people, the kind of people who maybe don't buy a lot of records, but who sit at home on a Saturday night and who are able to televote. So for me, it wouldn't be a surprise if it's Sanna Nielsen and the refreshments who go straight to the final here.
It's kind of rockabilly, isn't it?
Yes, very
refreshments. That kind of
rockabilly, rock kind of, sort of very 50s vibe anyway.
Indeed. I mean, what you were saying about Martin Stenmark, about how possibly the Swedish public hasn't forgiven him for his relatively poor showing in Kiev. Possibly he should wait about 15 years and they'll give him the chance to organise Melodifestivalen. That's just a thought anyway. Gavin, what's your opinion about this heat?
I'm pretty much in agreement with Sanna and Martin. I agree that Sanna should qualify. I agree that Martin will have worries. He's got excellent writers and I'm expecting a really upbeat song. But I do think the Swedish are generally quite unforgiving about things like that. And I do think the Eurovision performance will be on their minds. Two others I'm picking out, and I don't discount the refreshments, by the way. And I did make a note that, referring back to one of Norway's heats last year, in that Vidar Busk qualified. And that was a surprise, but that kind of music is really big. And I think that kind of music has its audience in Sweden. But the other
particularly away cities, I would say.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Smaller towns.
Yeah, and not everything has to be Schlager. There's an audience for every type of music, so I don't think it would be a surprise if they did make it through. Looking at a couple of other acts, Little Great Things, the ABBA link, it interests me greatly, and I think there might be certain powers that might be pushing them towards the final. Okay, if they go second chance round. Another one I like is Panetos. They had a big summer hit, and I think they will recreate Berang Miri's infectious Jela Dansa Sour. I think I said that right. And I think that's one to watch as well. I think the party songs do very well on Melodifestivalen stage. If you go back to Swing Fly's Me and My Drum, that was a big hit. And then I'm interested in Manda. She's mentioned Katy Perry in terms of what a song will be like. And looking at the writers on board, it's going to be a big hook-laden pop song.
So, Gavin was talking about kind of the party songs. I mean, I'm not sure that Gavin has, but the three rest of us, we've all been in Sweden on the 8th of February. And is it the case that everybody wants a party song to cheer themselves up?
I don't disagree with Gavin in that fact. So I think that Panitos might actually be doing a Berangmiri, but I do hope that nobody forgets about Gem, Jem, because they're a new group from the Swedish X Factor. They are really fun and has lots and lots of energy. So I think that if somebody gives Panitos a fight for Andra Chansen, it might be them. I, for one, hope that they will do very well, because I really like their attitude and their style of music much more than I've liked Panitos in before, and how I've heard Manda's song being described. So I would put my star and hope under the name of Gem. When it comes to the other artists, Sanna Nielsen, I think she's unbeatable. I felt personally offended last time she made it to the final, and also came like 4th in the final with that dated, awful song, and performing it in that circulating fruit bowl or whatever it was. But this song, according to my insiders, this is a really powerful ballad. It's supposed to be a bit different from Empty Room, much closer to Sarah Dawn Fine's Moving On, but with a more of a subtle chorus. The verses will be extremely powerful, but the verses will be very modern, very hard to sing, but Sanna has an amazing voice, and she's like one of the best singers in Sweden when it comes to tackle difficult songs to sing. So I think she's unbeatable. I do not agree with Gavin and Tobias when it comes to Martin Stenmark. I do think that Sweden now has forgotten about Kiev and Las Vegas, because Martin has since then had a few really big hits with a totally different genre of music, where he does pop in Swedish, who are a bit folk, a bit rock, a bit folk, and a bit easy listening pop. And I think that this song goes well into that genre as far as I've heard. And I think that lots and lots of Swedish women in all ages will just fall in love with him all over again, making him very, very popular, and he can very much well take it all the way to the final.
So
that could be.
Yeah.
When, as you mention it, I think so as well with Martin Stenmark. I think it's sort of hit or miss there. I think the risk is that people will still sort of in the back of their heads connect, like, we like this, but we wouldn't send it to Eurovision. But what do you feel then about the ABBA link of Little Great Things? I don't believe in that at all. I don't think that will have a big significance at all to Swedish TV voters. Neither do I.
What might be appealing with Little Great Things might be that they are very cute. It's 4 young boys, where Nanne Grönvall's sons, the ABBA link, where they look like they're 13 years old, even though they are 20 and 21. So the girls might fall in love with them. But we must remember that this artist was the only artist that Aftonbladet couldn't reveal beforehand, and that's not because the secret was very that it was a very big secret. It is one of the last songs into the competition this year, so I'm not sure that it is a very strong song. So the ABBA link, no, not so much. If they are charming enough, and if the song is amazing, they might make it. But that would not have anything to do with ABBA, and I have a feeling that the song isn't that strong.
Yes, I mean, for serious Melodifestivalen fans, surely the Nanne Grönvall link would be as strong as the ABBA link.
Exactly.
But I mean, I try not to give my opinion because, quite frankly, I'm generally wrong. Thing is, about Sanna Nielsen, I always get so frustrated about her because, as Torbjörn said, she has such a superb voice. I've seen her so many times on Så ska det låta, for example. And for those of us who like that kind of thing, she's good looking. But in Melodifestivalen, she's generally given such dull songs. Would you agree with that? I mean, quite frankly, give her an edgy song. Then...
But the thing is that Sanna Nielsen herself thinks that she's edgy, and according to her personal style, I think that she is. She comes from a very sort of low-key family. I feel that you wouldn't need much to stand out. She was singing in church when she was little. She thought that I'm in Love was edgy. She thought that, you know, Hela världen för mig in 2003 was edgy. So I mean, she probably thinks that she's coming up with really edgy stuff, and it really hits home with people because she makes these songs come alive.
When it comes to Sanna, this year, I do think that she has a somewhat more edgy song, or at least a more standout song, because remember when all the names were released and the first odds came out, it only took a few hours for her odds to be lowered from something around 17 or 13 times the money to around 4 or 5 times the money. And with that, I would suggest that the ones working at record companies and record labels and distributors that already have heard the songs, they know something. They know that she's got something special. So they've put the money in to lower her odds, and that I'm quite sure that means something. I don't think that this is an old and dated song. I think this is something greater and grander.
Let's move on. Let's go to Western Sweden. Let's go to the third heat, which is in Göteborg, Gothenburg in English. And the songs here, certainly, possibly, it seems a bit like the weakest heat in that there's not one of the favourites, the outright favourites in this heat. We have Echo by Outrigger, Red by Eko, Yes We Can by Oscar Schia, Burning Alive by Shirley Clamp, All We Are by State of Drama, En Enkel Song by Kajsa Stina Åkerström, Busy Doing Nothing by Ace Wilder, and Around the World by tampon advertiser Dr. Alban and Jessica Folker. Gavin, you first. What's your feelings about that?
I've actually heard a bit of chatter about Dr. Alban, and I am torn as to whether the 90s dance theme will excite voters or whether it'll sound a bit dated and whether it'll actually make people vote for it. I'm looking earlier on in the heat, and I'm going actually to Outrigger, given the writers. These are the guys that wrote Robin's song last year, and Outrigger did a cover version on YouTube, and it got picked up by the writers, and they wrote a song for them. So I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking it's going to have a very strong hook, and if the likes of Dead by April and Ralph Geilenhammer can qualify, then I think Outrigger should be up for qualification. I'm also interested by Kajsa Stina. How am I saying that?
Kajsa Stina Åkerström.
There we go. Well done, Andy. Yeah, I'm interested there because I think it's a nice juxtaposition in what is quite an upbeat semi-final. I think a nice down-tempo, high-quality song might just earn some votes, and it's meant to be quite emotional. And again, it's in Swedish, so I'm picking up on earlier points. But then I'm also interested in Ace Wilder. She's got a cracking song on YouTube called Do It. And if her song, Busy Doing Nothing, is anything like that, that also stands a chance. But I'm thinking more second chance for her.
Okay, fair enough. To me, En Enkel Song, it just reminds me of a kind of Eurovision entry that might be for Sweden in 1961 or something. Just the title, A Simple Song. It's from more innocent days. Tobbe, what's your opinion?
I think that this being Heat 3, if we don't have a ballad in the final, and Kajsa Stina, she's a well-known singer, but she's not very She hasn't done anything in quite a while. So if she delivers this with lots of feeling and you can really feel her on stage, it might actually be a straight to final song. But otherwise, I would agree with Gavster about Echo. This is what Outrigger's song. This is one of the first songs that I heard people talk about several months ago, being that if this is the year Sweden is going to send a rock song, this is going to be our winner. It's supposed to be a very, very strong chorus and a very good rock song. There might even be some growling involved. Not one of my favorite types of singing, but I've heard so much about this. So this is one of the songs that I'm really looking forward to hear. And Gavster, I couldn't stop laughing when you pronounced Ralph Gyllenhammar's surname, but that's a whole different story. Otherwise, this week
that's what he was trying to say. Okay.
Yeah, yes, I think Gavster, was that what you were trying?
Is that wrong?
Sorry, Gyllenhammer. Yeah. Well, we don't have to go into that now.
No.
Don't forget about Oscar Sia. Oscar Sia has a very young following. He appeals to the 12 to 16-year-old girls, and they might be strong in a week like this when we don't have any big favorites. They might send Oscar Sia straight to final. I would say regarding Dr. Alban and Jessica Folker, they're the ones that people will look forward to see. What the hell will they do this year? But I don't think they will get any votes.
No, I think that's probably fair enough. So you didn't mention...
Shirley Clamp. I forgot to
Shirley
mention
Clamp.
Shirley Clamp.
I
want Shirley Clamp to the final. I want her to the final because I love Shirley Clamp. I don't love all her songs, but I love her personality. So please, Sweden, vote Shirley Clamp to the final, no matter what her song is like.
So, Tobias, are you on the vote Clamp bandwagon?
I love Shirley too. She's adorable, but I have a feeling that the love story between Sweden and Shirley Clamp, it might not be over, but it's a lot cooler than it used to be anyway. And her last two appearances in Melodifestivalen, they didn't quite set the scoreboard on fire, did they? And I would be surprised if she would be the one to really break through this week. But then again, I keep looking at all these names thinking, no, probably not them. No, probably not them. No, probably not them. I think Dr. Alban has a huge problem because he's not very loved, is he? Everyone remembers him and everyone remembers his hits, but he doesn't have a legacy like that. People don't think of him as a hit maker. They think of him as someone who was a bit funny and who you can make fun of. So if he makes it to the final, that would be his revenge, sort of. And people tend to like that kind of thing. But I would be very surprised if this is... No, I don't think this is the finalist. As for Kajsa-Stina Åkerström, I fear that this can be the Anna Järvinen of the year. That, it's a quality song and a quality performance, but it's just not open enough, that it's not accessible enough for the televoters. And then I think Oscar Sia might be the big surprise here, because as Tobbe said, that he appeals to the girls, but he also appeals to their mothers, who thinks that he's a lovely little chap and they could well vote for him as well. And as for the rock song, then every time that there is rock in Melodifestivalen, I really hope that it would be, real rock, like a real rock song. But I tend to think that it almost every time it turns out to be Schlager rock, this kind of Melodifestivalen song with rock ornaments on.
I know exactly
and
what
I
you
don't,
mean there, Tobias.
And I don't like that. I think that that's really silly, and I wish if it's a real rock song, that it's rock that could actually be on a rock album without blushing, then it could stand a chance. But I think that this kind of poodle Schlager rock kind of thingy, I think that's a little bit dated and that we've done that. So it depends on what kind of rock song it is. But that and then Oscar Sia, that would what I think could hit home.
No, it's fair enough, and bear in mind the song is, well, at least co-written by very mainstream songwriters, Linnea and Joy Deb. So yes, it could well be that it's one of these Schlager rock songs, as you say. We'll now go on to the fourth and final heat, which is in Örnsköldsvik, known to me for being the home of the ice hockey team Modo, and probably not much else, but I've never been there. So, here in Örnsköldsvik, we have Blame It on the Disco by Alcazar, Fight Me If You Dare by Ida, I'm not sure, Hollow by Janet Leon, Raise Your Hands by Anne Track, Hela Natten by Josef Johansson, Ta mig by Linda Bengtzing, and Himmelsk Song by Eleanor Holmier, and Natural by Anton Ewald. Torbjörn, is it Anton's to lose?
Well, it is, because Anton had a really big breakthrough last year.
He did.
But I don't think they would put him as the last artist of the year, number 32, had he not had a song and a performance that would take him to the final. I'm not sure how he's going to do in the final, but I do think that he has enough voters with a good enough song to take him there. But the question is, who will he bring? Who will join him in the final? And I put my hopes, and this is me going Schlager lover now. I want Alcazar in the final. Whatever fucking song they put on, they've been robbed of their victory so many times. So I'm hoping to God that they have a great song this year, makes it to the final, and takes the victory. Their odds at this very moment are the lowest of them all for the victory. Yes. But I am somewhat in doubt that their song is good enough, because at the time of the presentation of when SVT presented the artists and the names of the songs, Alcazar, according to my insiders, did not have much more than the actual title, maybe parts of a chorus, maybe parts of a verse, but the song was far from finished at that point. So, and this is because SVT really wanted them in the competition, their record label and themselves. They agreed on, okay, we've got something to work on here, we can enter. And I'm not sure whether they've actually managed to put that into something that is good enough for them. Remember that half the times they've been in, they've done really great songs. Half the times they've done kind of semi-great songs. So I'm just hoping that it is the song this year. Otherwise, other things that I've heard of this finalist, for instance, Linda Bengtzing, she always gets to the final, but this year she's entering with a totally different genre. This is not a classic Linda Bengtzing Schlager anthem. This is much more of a rock song in Swedish. Written by Nicke Borg, who himself is a rock artist. So I'm not sure that Linda Bengtzing can count on being straight to the final this year. And then we have Janet Leon again doing a ballad this time. She didn't make it to the final last year. And the thing with Janet is that she's had so many chances to make it big in Sweden. She's had her own TV show, a TV show about her and about how to break as an artist in Sweden. Out of that TV show on TV4 a couple of years ago, she had one major hit and then nothing else. I don't think a ballad will do it for her either. I think she has trouble making Sweden like her, and I'm not sure this will do it for her either.
Tobias, so what do you think? Is it Alcazar's year, finally?
I think it could very well be. I'm going to sound really old here and make a really old comparison here, but I'm getting this old. I I am. So that's why I'm old and wise. So I will use this I will like them to Tor Endresen from Norway, who had been in Melodi Grand Prix in Norway like 7 times or something, when he finally won with the weakest song he had ever entered, but everyone was like, "Oh, poor Tor, he never won.
San Francisco.
Let him
When
win."
was this?
Yeah,
How old are you?
1997.
Jesus Christ, are you that old, Tobias? You
even
should
older.
retire soon.
Just you wait.
I'd like to point out that I'm actually slightly older than Tobias. I am 40 this year. Thank you.
Yes, and I am 26 this year again.
Again?
Yes,
for
the 10th time.
Okay, great. I'm so happy for you.
Yes, carry on.
Yeah,
yes.
And everyone knows what happens, like Eurovision fans knows what happened when you select someone because the audience thinks they deserve it rather than that the song deserves it. He went to Dublin and scored a big fat 0 there. I don't think that Alcazar, I think that they're too professional to score any zeros anywhere, but I think that this can be the year when people have really longed and missed Alcazar because they broke up. And then it was like people realized that, oh, we're never going to be represented by Alcazar at Eurovision. And everyone started really warming to the idea what a wonderful thing it would be if Alcazar would have represented Sweden. So I think this idea can carry them very, very far. And I think that when it comes to this heat, it doesn't matter that much if the song is good enough or not. People will be so head over heels in love with Alcazar and them being back, despite the fact that they've never really been gone because they kept on gigging all the time when they had split up. I think that people will love them and vote for them regardless. And apparently they do the same for Anton Ewald as well. I can't see the magic of him. I'm sorry. He's a good dancer. I'll give him that, but I don't think he's charming. I don't think he's a good singer. And the thing is that if he managed to create that illusion again that he's a great pop star, then he will get a lot of votes. If that illusion is broken somehow, if it becomes clear for people that maybe he isn't all that, then he could be like the free fall of this entire Melodifestivalen season. But then I have no idea who would join him. I think Linda Bengtzing will upset the audience by sounding differently than she usually does. And then as for Janet Leon, she just doesn't have it. She's just not likable enough. She's not going through the screens, and Swedes won't vote for her. And I can't see her happening this year either. No, perhaps then Ammo Track could work with another rock song. Say that the rock fails the other week, maybe people think that it's time for a rock song now. I don't know, but I think Alcazar is bang in the final, and then the question is how far that will carry them there.
No, fair enough. I mean, maybe Tobias, you and me, we're just too old.
Perhaps. Yes. I'd like to say that I'm. I wouldn't want to say that I'm old. I'd like to emphasize that I'm wise.
No, absolutely. Certainly wise. Okay, Gav, we've had quite a few opinions on these. Alcazar, I mean, Blame It on the Disco. Isn't that kind of an Alcazar title by numbers? And having considered what Tulpa has said, that they just had the title, it does sound like a bit of a botched together number, doesn't it?
Sometimes those songs are the best ones to have. It's difficult because we haven't got songs at the moment. We are all we are discussing are titles of songs. We're looking at the betting markets and we're thinking, their odds have shortened. They must have a good song. Interestingly, it was the Swedish bookmakers that shortened their odds on Alcazar first, and gradually it's drifted over to the UK. So I do kind of think that there could be some fan love over in Sweden that have taken Alcazar's odds down, and maybe, yes, we could have a dud and they might disappoint.
Like Army of Lovers last year.
Yes, and I think if SVT really wanted Alcazar to do well, maybe they'd have put them in a different heat, perhaps heat 3, and put them last in the running order if they wanted to guarantee them that slot.
Mm.
It's interesting that they've put them first, considering first is not always ideal, but you can qualify from first. Certainly second is the worst, which rules out IDA. Janet Leon, she's just not likeable. She wasn't likeable last year. She seems far too in your face, very powerful, and I don't think the ballad will soften her image much. I'm also thinking that Ammo Track might be the one that could surprise if Alcazar's song isn't up to scratch. But then I'm also looking a bit further on in the running order. Now, Eleanor has very, very good writers. I noticed one of the writers has written for Marco Mengoni. And I'm just wondering, is there a surprise there? But I'm thinking second chance round. Because no one's thinking of her. You can still get over 100-1 on her, which would be a lot less if she qualified second chance. But in terms of Anton, yes, he's going straight through. There's no worries about him. And I don't have an issue with Anton's music. Begging last year was a really good pop song. It's still in my car. I still listen to it. But his voice is a shocker. And that's also what puts me off Oscar Zia from the previous heat. Neither of them are known for good vocals. But that's also an issue with Melodifestivalen in that they allow playback assistance. So the audience is almost conned into supporting these acts that don't have strong voices. And then once they get to Eurovision, where playback assistance isn't allowed, they fall flat on their face. So it's interesting. It's interesting. And actually, Krista wants to make playback assistance available at Eurovision.
Krista Siegfried?
No.
Yes, exactly. Krista Siegfried wants everybody to have a lesbian kiss and playback song in Eurovision. That's her main goal this year.
Yeah, and preferably a same-sex kiss in the end as well.
Yes,
if you don't do that, you will be disqualified.
I would back that if Russia win next year, and we had it next year.
That as well.
Oh, yes, please.
No, absolutely. Thank you, gentlemen, for all your opinions. According to my script, I meant to ask, for your overall winner, but it's very, very difficult to say, having not heard any of the songs. All I will ask is, particularly Torbjörn, you're probably closest to the rumours due to your job and being inside the Melodifestivalen bubble. Do you think Sweden has a chance of winning this year?
I actually do think Sweden has a chance of winning this year.
How?
The reason why I'm saying this is because Christer Björkman is so sure that we might actually have 3 Eurovision winners amongst these 32 songs. So if Sweden votes as Christer Björkman would like us to, and we also are alone in that genre in Eurovision, we might have a chance to end up top 3 or win the whole shebang this year. So I'm going to go with his thoughts about that.
And who could ignore the judgment of a man who came second last the one time he entered Eurovision? Just for your last words, Tobias, can you briefly, in 30 seconds, tell us who will win the Finnish contest in a week and a half's time, UMK?
Oh, well, the lineup isn't really determined yet because we have a second chance round and so, but I think that the winner will be Soft Engine, which is a young rock band with a song, the kind of rock song, that Switzerland tend to fail qualification with. Think Sin Plus. It's a good song. It's not bad. The boys are really, really good, I must say. I wish that the song had been a little bit more distinct. Perhaps Finland isn't having its finest year so far with the UMK concepts, to put it nicely. But I think that Soft Engine will be the winner in Finland, and I think that they, on a good day, could manage to qualify for the final in Copenhagen.
Yes, that's typical Finnish optimism for you. On a good day, we could qualify.
Yes, but we also know that people never vote for us out of kindness. So we need to have a bit of luck, and we need to have a good draw, and as running, like not a draw, but a starting position and everything. And sometimes not even that helps. So, but I think that they could have a shot at being in the final, hopefully.
Absolutely fair enough. Okay, I think it's time to wrap up. So I will say thank you so much to our guests, Torbjörn Ek from Aftonbladet, thank you so much for making time to be with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Tobias Larsson, Eurovision royalty as well, thank you so much as well.
You're most welcome.
And Gavin Lambert, I'm kind of stuck with you anyway, so, but, you know, thanks anyway.
Yeah, our relationship goes on for another 6 months.
That's what you wish. Anyway, thank you so much for all of those. Please, I will repeat what I said. Please like us on iTunes and YouTube, and please keep checking esctips.com. Like us on Facebook, Twitter, all of those. We will be back with another Melodifestivalen podcast before the final, when we'll actually have heard all of the songs, where we'll discuss the likely winner, and we'll probably find out that we were completely wrong with our speculation. And also, like last year, we'll also be recording a series of Eurovision podcasts in March and April, where, as ever, the United Kingdom will have no chance. But we know that. But thank you so much for listening. Thank you to all guests. Thank you to everybody. Thank you to God if you exist. But thank you. Goodbye.